So Halo's back, and everyone's celebrating by twerking on their fallen foes, and it feels so good to be back having real fun with the series again. So did Hillsong do the Halo Infinite soundtrack, or what? Okay, so I want to be clear, this isn't going to be a "it's different, therefore it's ruined" video, but I think the effects of the change in soundtrack genre between the Bungie titles and Infinite is interesting, and I just want to talk about it a little bit. Note that this video was written before Campaign came out, and is strictly discussing the music in the multiplayer. After having played the first few missions of the campaign, I can say that what I'm about to talk about doesn't really seem to apply there. The original soundtracks by Marty O'Donnell are iconic, but what made them so unique and memorable, I think, is missing from the new stuff. If I had to describe the effect the original soundtracks had on the game in one word, I'd say pretentious. Whoa, pretentious? Badams, that's the bad word for the bad art. What do you mean? Okay, hold on, you're gonna need to let me explain. Let's be clear, when I say pretentious, I mean it as its most neutral definition. That something gives off an appearance of deeper meaning where there is none. Despite what some may think, this isn't strictly a bad thing, and in Halo, I think it's central to the game's... the games'? The games as I think the pretentiousness is central to the charm of Bungie's iterations of Halo. Think about it. At its face value, the original Halo trilogy is about killing alien cultists because they think killing everyone else is part of manifesting their destiny. It's not deep, complex, or morally grey whatsoever. This is where Marty's score fits. The modernized epic romanticism with these sweeping strings and beautiful melancholic piano used to score a dumb fun shooter about blowing up aliens is, I think, one of the primary factors that gave the Bungie Halo games such a distinct tone. Seriously, even just the main menus of Bungie's titles were all sad and melancholic. It's the contrast between this musical aesthetic and the gameplay in which I can stick a glowing blue bomb to the crotch piece of a soldier. A soldier who was stolen from their parents at the age of 6, replaced by a clone that would die in agony within months, to the horror of their parents. Then, at 14, they and all their friends started being genetically mutated for war, with most dying as a result. Bred to murder, their free will sapped by the struggle of the human race, their life filled with blood and agony has entirely led them to this moment. The moment it all ends. All those memories of pain, the memories of their fallen allies, all lost because I, XX_noobslayer251_XX, stuck a glowing blue bomb to their crotch plate. In contrast, the new stuff written for Halo Infinite is more subtle. I know, an opinion on the internet that thinks subtlety isn't always the best thing. Hey, what are those pitchforks for? The new style used to score Halo Infinite's multiplayer has dropped the larger-than-life orchestras for a kind of vibey, almost shoegaze ambient guitar-focused style. The mention of Hillsong at the start of this video was no accident. This style of guitar is genuinely reminiscent of modern Christian contemporary music like Hillsong. Again, this isn't strictly a bad thing. In fact, experimenting and changing things up is vital. People say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but I say, don't fix it unless it's art, in which case, you can piss off with that stagnant crap. That's how you get kids hearing Song 2 for the first time when Big Time Rush used the riff. Why does this exist? Excuse me, this is XX_noobslayer251_XX. Could you put the CEO of SpongeBob on the line? Despite the ultimate neutrality of the new stylistic direction, in my opinion, the general vibe of the music is a little off to me in a way that almost metaphorically represents my feelings towards the game as a whole. I'm having more fun with Infinite than I had with 4 and 5 combined. I'm on the train of feeling like the FPS king is back, but I do feel it's a little stilted. It's the gross paywall progression system that doesn't reward players for just playing the game like the OGs did. It's the lost lunge in the punch that leaves me slapping the air like a drunken mime. It's the truly, truly awful user interface that makes looking through customization options as intuitive as feeding your index finger into a paper shredder. It's the machinima controls that don't let you lower your weapon. There's an option for machinima controls that don't let you lower your weapon! But while these little issues can be annoying, they don't take away from the fact that at its core, Halo Infinite is stupid fun. Similarly, though I find the new musical direction a little off, this doesn't mean the art isn't worthy of praise. And that's it. Those are my weird, ranty thoughts. That said, I think it'd be fun to try reorchestrating the Halo Infinite victory fanfare in the style of Marty O'Donnell. What? Did you think there would be no needlessly in-depth theory analysis? Did you really think there'd be no music theory? So for starters, we need to transcribe and analyze the harmony of the victory theme. This transcription isn't the most detailed for a number of reasons. For one, we don't need to know absolutely every little thing happening in every layer for a simple, cheeky reorchestration. And secondly, the mix on the track is just so washy that it's almost impossible to tell exactly what's happening. Like, even figuring out what the drums were doing, the by far easiest instrument to transcribe ever, was a pain. I'm not going to take the time to try and figure out how many different layers of pad synths are sustaining exactly the same chords in the background. This tune is less Jacob Collier and more a high school guitarist at 420 with their first delay pedal.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
That said, it's surprisingly difficult to decipher exactly what's happening harmonically. The pads in the background are sustaining some diatonic notes for 4 bars at a time, whilst another synth plays a constant repeating arpeggio. Because of these constants, although the bass seems to play root notes to a clear chord progression, it's hard to argue that what I have here in the chords is accurate. You could argue the whole thing is just an E minor chord and then moves to inversions and sus chords where I have the G and A minor chord. Or you could argue that the A minor chord isn't there at all and it just moves to a G add 9 on A. For the sake of this exercise, I've gone for Occam's razor. The most simple solution is correct. The vibe of this piece suggests to me that the harmonic function was about as relevant to proceedings as a consumer-friendly business practice is to AAA developers, so we don't really need to stress about it. I'm gonna change the chords anyway. So that's it. A real simple tune. So how are we going to make it sound like a Marty O'Donnell epic? For starters, I'm going to put both the synth arpeggio and the electric guitar melody in the piano and the 2 violin parts. Doubling between strings and piano is pretty common in the classic Halo soundtracks, and I think I can get some nice sounding Halo-esque cluster chords in the right hand of the piano, supporting that main melody line that was in the guitar before. These cluster chords weren't written with any specific convention, I just went with what sounded good to me. When writing these clusters, I decided to add a spicy little G sharp in the 4th bar, transforming the G and A minor chords from the original tune into a bar of A diminished. To make this work, I had to shift the Ds in the arpeggio to D sharps for the duration of the chord. I find this harmonic throughline to be much more satisfying than the original tune, though it does make it way more dramatic. Like, we've gone from typical rock minor key to operatic anime villain theme from the 90s through early 2000s with a single chord change. Sounds like it's right out of Kingdom Hearts now, and you know what? I'm okay with that. If turning the Halo Infinite music into something that sounds like the cringe anime corporate nightmare game is cool, then so be it. Did you just criticize Kingdom Hearts? What, me? Criticize a beloved franchise with a rabid fan base? I'd never! No, please don't do it. Please. Please, please don't do it. When you walk away, you don't hear me say, please! Oh baby, don't go. Simple and plain is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's so letting go. Next, I just copied the bass line into the double bass, with one slight change. In bar 4, instead of going back to the G in the last half beat, I go back to an F sharp. It's a small change, but I found the original track going back to the G here really just didn't gel with the harmony at all. Like, it honestly just kinda sounded gross and muddy to me. So I changed those two notes to an F sharp. This is by far the nitpickiest thing I've done in the video, besides that one time I made an entire video freaking out over a single chord in the Animal Crossing soundtrack. In addition, I took the pads and put those in the viola and cello. However, when the harmony repeats, I altered the cello to double the melody. Then when the melody repeats, back down to the F, the cello just keeps rising until the last chord. I thought this added a much more sensical lead into the final chord. Next up, we can't have an intense Halo orchestral theme without some beefy percussion. I've just gone with something simple for this. Timpani takes the main role, with some syncopated accenting from the bass drum and a crash accenting beat ones of most bars. No, performer, I love your sounds, most of them are great, but your percussion just is not there. It's sounding like it's coming together pretty well, though. I think all we need is some extra little classic Halo instruments. Chuck in a choir, maybe I'll write my own original counter melody for them to sing. No, absolutely not. You know what? I've changed my mind. The arpeggio makes the piece way too busy for a choir counter melody anyway. Just sustain an E minor chord or something, and absolutely no more references to mid-2000s Nickelodeon. Do we understand? Yeah, okay. You win. You're victorious.
You think you can fight the darkness, Sora? I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't know that Kingdom Hearts was light until I was already a Heartless. And by then, it was nothing to me but blinding.
Now, when writing for singers, be sure to put in those breath marks, lest they all die of oxygen starvation.
This single apostrophe is the only thing standing between me and a manslaughter charge. If not first-degree murder, your lives are in my hands!
Now, I think that's about it for the writing. I could put in some horns, but the piece is already pretty full, and the classic Halo soundtracks were often just strings, piano, and choir more than full orchestras anyway. So let's perform this new version into Metropolis and see how it sounds in context.
Victory!
Well, hey, that exists now. I'm not sure it really sounds all that much like the classic soundtracks at the end of the day, but I think that's just more revealing of how far removed the new stuff is from Marty's work on a deeper level. The way the harmonies and melodies are built at a fundamental level are just totally different, and that's not a bad thing. But let me know how much you hate my version in the comments. Smell you later, nerds.